Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the third edition of the Inspiration Hour. Today, we are talking about rebranding your community, how you do it and why. Glad to see all the responses. We are going to record, we are recording this session and we will send it out to you. I'm not going to be able to send it out today. I'll send it out probably on Friday, but we'll send the recording and we will send all the materials that we can along with that. If you have any questions or if you have any technical issues, I would ask you to please privately message Sharon Henderson. She works with MSU Extension and she's our tech help for this series. So first, I'll just start out with the introduction. So welcome everybody again. My name is Tara Mastel. I work with Montana State University Extension. I am the program leader for the Community Development Program within Extension. We really focus on rural community vitality across the state. We coordinate and manage the Reimagining Rural program, and we have the Big Sky, Big Leadership program, which helps build skills with our leaders in our small towns. Today I have a co-host today, Jennifer Anderson. Jennifer, wave here so everybody knows you. There's Jennifer. Jennifer is the extension agent in Rosebud and Treasure counties, and she works in community development, family consumer science, and 4-H. She's very busy over there. She's also on the school board, has been on the chamber. She's part of the booster club. Jennifer kind of does everything. And also she's been a big inspiration. She's actually had the idea for Reimagining Rural and is a big part of the planning team for this series. So Jennifer's going to be my co-host. Just a brief word about this whole series, Inspiration Hour. We really have designed it for rural leaders in small towns that are really kind of community volunteer based. We know that you have some really pressing challenges there. You don't have a lot of staff or capacity there to help. So we're trying to bring you these topics that are on really hot topics that help you figure out what is your next step. How can you make a first step on these big challenges and really the big opportunities that you are seeing in your communities. All right, well, with that, let's introduce our panelists that we have today, and then we'll start with our questions. So we've assembled this amazing group of panelists, and I'm just gonna talk about, I'll have them wave their hands. So first we have Nate Kavanaugh. He's from Cut Bank. And Nate, I believe you are the president of the chamber, is that correct? You're a business owner, I know, in town.
Yep, I was the president last year. I'm no longer on the chamber board, but I'm still involved with Reimagining Rural.
Awesome, great, okay. And then we have Beth Epley. She's the executive director of Eastern Plains Economic Development. So she's based in Baker, but serves a 5-county area in Eastern Montana. We have Tara Berman, who's the community and food and ag assistant at Eastern Plains Economic Development. So she's based in Glendive. And then we have Lisa Koski. Lisa is the executive director of the Glasgow Area Chamber of Commerce and Agriculture. And we have Ray Brown, executive director of Sanders County Community Development. So Ray is based in Thompson Falls, so far over on the western part of the state. And then Jennifer Anderson in Forsyth. Great, okay. So let's start out with just asking each of our panelists to just, I've already kind of introduced you, but if you could just talk a little bit about where you are in your branding process and what was your main reason for doing the branding? Like, what did you hope to accomplish? If you could just sort of introduce yourself a little bit with that, a little more color to that introduction. And I guess we'll start off with Nate. And while you're talking, Nate, I'm gonna pull up some of the pictures that you shared about what you're, what you have right now. So,
yeah,
great.
So when we were in our Reimagining Rural meetings, a lot of what came up was a need for better signage and kind of how we promote Cut Bank and what we look like to the outside world. And every project that we wanted to do, we needed to have some type of branding in place. And so, like, as you can see here, it's like we've got a lot of different imagery. You know, we have banners throughout town, we have these nice welcome signs, but nothing is very cohesive. And it kind of clashes. It doesn't really go well. And so it's nice that we have kind of a start with some of these pieces, but we just want to make it clear. And you can, yeah, go to the penguin.
Mhm.
And so the other thing is kind of, for whatever reason, Cut Bank's known for our 27-foot penguin, and some, organizations play that up, some play it down. And so I think with this branding initiative, we just wanted to figure out, okay, what is Cut Bank? How do we present it? How do we be Cut Bank in 2023 and not Cut Bank of like the 70s and 80s? Because our industry is different. You know, we still have oil in Cut Bank, but it's not the main driver. And so it's really easy to get stuck on what Cut Bank used to be, what it was. And this branding project is, the goal is to help us kind of get everybody on the same page, from the chamber to the city, and the other organizations that might do different events like Cut Bank Trails, and just get us all on the same page and consistent messaging, signage, and things like that.
Yeah.
And so the first step is branding. Otherwise, we can't do any of that. So,
Yep.
and kind of where we're at right now is it ballooned into a bigger project. And so we worked with other organizations to get more funding for it. And I can speak more about where we're
Yeah,
at later.
that sounds great. Thank you, Nate.
Hmm.
Okay, next, Beth, do you want to tell us a little bit about what's going on, where you're at with branding in Baker, and what was your main reason for doing it, what you hope to accomplish?
So, similar to Cut Bank, we started this as part of our Reimagining Rural. We were looking at how do we diversify our economy, and we thought one of the areas where we could have some real growth potential is in tourism and marketing our community. But we found that we didn't have any tools or like imagery or cohesion as we were marketing our community. And so that was something that we developed as part of that. We thought this is a great key step in having to promote ourselves outward, but really we had to look inward and see, like, who are we and what do we want people to know about us, and who do we view us, who do we view ourselves as, and how do outsiders view us. And so we came up with this really great logo. It has, if you aren't familiar with Baker, we have a lake right in the middle of our town. And that's kind of a unique asset, especially out here on the prairie. And so we loved to include that imagery of our lake, and then that's our skyline. Our biggest building right there is our elevator, like many of you, but it's just something that's very identifiable for our community between the lake and our great big sky. We thought that really encapsulated who we are, and then allowed us to take that next step into sharing that with others.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Beth. Okay, so I just want to just encourage everybody that's participating today to, if you have questions, just include them in the chat and we'll ask them as we go along. And Jennifer, just jump in at any point. Okay, so Tara, let's move on to you. Do you want to? I'll pull up the Glendive stuff. Do you want to share a little about that?
So I think it's a common theme in wanting to have a cohesive brand for our community. We live in an area that is like an embarrassment of riches. We have Makoshika State Park, we have the Yellowstone River, we have so we have Badlands and river and prairie. And I think that the entire community needs to figure out what direction we want to go. And that was kind of our thing, is what direction should we all go together, because we also have dinosaurs. And so how do you connect the three and have it make sense? And again, we had probably the similar issue of wanting to bring something into 2023 versus remembering the good old days of our community and trying to like move us forward and see what direction we could go, and then do it all together. So that was our main reason for branding.
Awesome. Here's some pictures of some, looks like some
Billboard options.
Billboards. Yeah, those are great. Okay, excellent. Great. So next we have Glasgow. Lisa, do you want to tell us a little bit more about what's going on in Glasgow? Where are you at with branding? What was your main reason for doing it? What do you hope to accomplish?
We started our branding project in roughly 2017, and we do have quite a few billboards and signs on the ground, but we are probably midway through. Once people get going in branding, you're going to realize how expensive it is. To date, with all of our signs and our branding, we've spent over $110,000. A lot of it was grant money through Montana Main Street. They're a huge part of this, but we also had the City of Glasgow, Two Rivers Economic Growth, the Chamber, and the Glasgow Tourism Business Improvement District. We all kind of banded together, and it was really frustrating at first because it took so long to see these actual signs that, I mean, like I said, it's 2023, and we probably have 15, 16 signs up right now. But we started this in 2017. So it's really for those people that when you start from the ground up and go to where you are today, like I said, we're about halfway through and we're just waiting on funding is what we're doing right now. So, but like Glasgow is, we've kind of incorporated, we're the Glasgow Scotties. And so Scotty Pride was a huge thing with us, and our mascot and our uniforms all have a lot of plaid on them. So that's where you see on the top where we incorporated the plaid, and then the Glasgow G with the, and you on those you see just the red and white version, but we have another version that has the agricultural fields because we're primary agricultural community. So, but we've had about 12 people on the ground that have been active with this from the beginning. And then like I said, we got our whole community involved when we did this thing. We did surveys, we had little pop-up sessions, question and answers. So we got the whole community basically involved in this process. And we wanted the cohesiveness like everybody else.
Awesome. Great. Okay. Thank you, Lisa. That's awesome. Okay, Ray. Ray, I only have one of your images, but it's a good one.
A good one.
So,
well, that's good.
Yeah.
I prefer the good ones.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, I'm in I guess I'm representing the west side over here. I'm in Thompson Falls. I'm the community or economic development director here. And the reason why, we went through this is that, like they had mentioned, previously, it's identity is a real big deal. This is a 26-week process that we went through in order to pull this together. And actually, as Ben Winchester mentioned in his Reimagining Rural, talk, is that it's not the buildings, it's not the rivers, it's the people. And as we went through this process, that was a big deal. Is that's where that genuine in nature kind of comes in. Is that we are surrounded by pretty majestic mountains, but it's really the people that pull us all together. And so where we're at is that we have our logos, we have some signs placed throughout. But we still are needing to keep everybody in alignment. And that is something that, we continue to struggle with, is making sure that all of our organizations, are on the same page. But we have a wayfinding plan still in the works. And like I said, once you get this going, it takes some time, but progress is being made.
Awesome. That's great. Great, Ray. Okay, Jennifer, I saved you for last since you're kind of helping with the co-hosting, even though I haven't let you speak yet, but I'm going to pull up your stuff now. Thank you, Ray. Okay, Jennifer.
That's fine. Thanks, Tara. So happy to be here, happy to help out. I'll share a little bit of where Forsyth is at. We also do have some questions in the chat box. So maybe when I get done rattling this off, we can get to look at those for a little bit. Yes. So Tara's put pictures. So as Tara said, I'm Jennifer Anderson. I'm the MSU Extension Agent for Rose Bend and Treasure Counties. I serve in a lot of capacities, but my main focus seems to be community development. We are with the city of Forsyth, we are just embarking on the rebranding project that we also started because of our Reimagining Rural efforts. It's a joint effort between our city, county, chamber, community foundation. Basically, anybody who wants to have a seat at a table is welcome to be involved. We've posted pictures of what some of our signage is in town and logos and things. So our reason for doing this was pretty much the same as what everybody said, that identity is a really big deal. And we do not have anything that's very cohesive. That yellow sign there is a billboard. It's pretty dated. Our welcoming signs are pretty dated. So we also have other projects, tangible projects that we wanted to accomplish, but we realized very quickly when we started down this road that we needed to have that cohesive brand. So whether we wanted to or not, that's where we started. That's where we're starting, is to develop a brand. We are also, so it did come from Reimagining Rural. And we are also utilizing Montana Main Street funds, as I think Glasgow said as well. So our why is to create that identity, to update, refresh our identity, create some cohesiveness. We are also working very diligently to engage all stakeholders and first-time visitors and longtime residents across the board. So also working very hard to do that.
Excellent. Okay, so we do have some questions and some great comments in the chat. Lots of hand clapping. It looks like you guys are doing a great job, which is why we've got you on here. We're so glad to have you. So Jennifer, how about we just ask a couple of our general questions that we had, and maybe we can dive into more specific questions from the audience as we go.
I think that's a good idea, Tara, because I think some of the questions that we've chosen to ask the panelists, I think some of this information is going to get fleshed out as we go on. So stay tuned, hold on, and if we don't answer your question as we go through this, I think we can probably have time to talk about them at the end.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good. Okay. So how we're going to do this is we have just a few questions that we're going to ask of everybody, and maybe not everybody has an answer, and that's fine. But if you have something that you want to share, just like raise your hand or start talking as far as the panelists goes. So here's the first question that we have. The need for a community brand can seem pretty abstract to the general public, the general people in your town. Can you talk about your community's level of support or buy-in for the efforts that you took into engage your stakeholders or to kind of sell this idea within your local community? Does anybody have any thoughts on that? Tara, go ahead. Oh, we can't hear you. Sorry.
I keep going to mute. I don't know why. Sorry about that. I can speak to the fact that it's an abstract concept for your community. I think a lot of our community members wanted us to just have a drawing contest, essentially, and there's your brand. And so explaining that it's so much deeper, you have to have surveys and figure out what that cohesiveness looks like and how it should look. I think that was the biggest challenge for us to explain to the community, that we couldn't just have someone draw a picture and have that be our brand going forward, or a logo, right, and have that be a brand.
I'm just so glad to hear you say that, Tara, because I know exactly what you're talking about. Let's have a contest, and we have great artists here, and that's so true. But we're welcoming visitors, whether they grew up there, they moved away, or people that are true tourists coming through, and they live in an environment where the standards for visual representation they're high. So if you don't meet those standards, then it's not familiar or comfortable to those visitors, those tourists, and even our youth that are, now we have Instagram and Facebook, all these images are just coming across, and they're pretty high level. Yes. Any other thought? Anybody else have an opinion on that? Getting your general public on board to buy into this? Yeah, Ray, go ahead.
Well, it was like a double-edged sword, here, because, we are a gateway to Glacier, and, tourism isn't necessarily always on the forefront of our residents' mind. And so what the process allowed us to do, though, was bring people into alignment, which is super important. And just having those community conversations and getting people in the same room and talking about who we are and what we want to be really put a lot of that at ease. It's not always about promotion of your area to outside. It's sometimes about, you know, finding out who you are and where you want this community to go.
Yeah, Nate, do you have something to add to that? I thought I've just been so taught. So it's what you guys all went through in Cut Bank has just been so huge with all this.
Yeah, I think that when you introduce the idea, people are very confused and don't understand the cost. So I was really glad, I think it was Glasgow that had shared, like, this is a multi-year project, and it's not only a multi-year project, it's like tens to $100,000. So there was sticker shock when I brought a proposal for a firm that I'd like to work with, and I think it just took some convincing. But then once you explain it, people came around, and then I feel like there was buy-in. It's kind of like a slow drip, though. It might not be the first time you explain it, but it might be the third or the fourth, or the third time it's come up at a chamber meeting or something, that people are like, oh, I guess when we went to such and such a town, I did notice that, or something like that. So it's really nice to have these examples from other communities to just kind of give that like visual aid if you're still trying to convince the people in your own community.
Where we're from, Northeast Montana, our areas, our groups collaborate so well together. Like we have the city and the Two Rivers, the economic growth, the chamber, the school district. I mean, we just have a huge buy-in there. So when we did form this committee, we had a lot of community involvement. And like I said, we did the surveys. The Wendt agency out of Great Falls is who we went with, because one of the architects there was from Opine, which is 52 miles north of us, small community, but she's very familiar with Glasgow. So, and we did the essentially sit down with there's roughly 12 of us, and our values and what do you think of when you think of Glasgow. And we had tons of responses with our surveys. We had public forums, and then they actually brought the pictures to make it kind of real, because a lot of people don't understand what branding and wayfinding is. And so, but like I said, our community is really great about evolving, and with the partnerships that we all have. Like I said, most of us are on multiple organizations. Like I do the chamber, and I'm on the Two Rivers Economic Growth Board. I'm also on city council. So we have a lot of cohesiveness, and we kind of know what's going on. And so that makes it a lot easier. We get along well. So that really helps.
Great. Should we move on to the next question, Jennifer? All right. So, okay. So this is a down to the nuts and bolts here. How much did you spend on it? How did you pay for it? Grants, donations, sponsors, a combination? And maybe for those of you that are currently working on it, maybe what's your first, goal for raising money? So we already heard from Lisa from Glasgow that you're, around the $100,000 mark but that includes everything, including the ideation, the conceptual design, but then also the production of the actual.
Yep. And like I said, we have probably 15 signs up, and then we have some kiosks also, but each one is, like I said, not cheap. But like I said, Montana Main Street is huge. They were a huge partner with us, but between the city of Glasgow and all of the groups that I mentioned earlier, we came together when we've put in about $35,000 of our own money, but the rest was all grant money.
Great. Anybody else want to share like what they're thinking as far as the budget, or what they know of? Yes, go ahead, Ray.
Yeah, so ours was a 26-week process and I'm looking at the proposal now. It was at $11,000 just to get that design pulled together, but 26 weeks for $11,000 I thought was a screaming deal.
And so, Ray, just to be clear, so that means the logo that I shared earlier, just that image, yeah.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, Tara, then Beth. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry,
just
Beth.
To get our logo was $21,500. The planning and all that's for Glasgow.
So logo was $21,000. So I hope everybody's still sitting in their chair. It's expensive, but like I said, that quality, I think the quality needs to be there because of we're really living in a national environment. Okay, so Tara, then Beth.
Sorry, Beth. Ours was $18,000. $15,000 of that was grant dollars from Montana Main Street. $3,000 the city government went into it. I think that was sticker shock for our community, absolutely. And so there was backlash there about, quote, spending tax dollars on something like this. So that's just something for everyone to keep in mind as they present it to their community, is that people want to understand where the money is coming from, what those dollars might have already been earmarked for had they not gone to your grant, things like that. We just had a pretty large community backlash in terms of the finances. Our goals going forward, though, will be like kiosks and then flags and wayfinding. And so we're really in the infant stages of it because we just have our logo and our brand kit.
And I just want to just say that, just some language. So wayfinding is a term that I didn't know I needed to know. Wayfinding is telling you, here's where the school is, here's where the trail is, here's where our downtown is, this way to the pool. Yeah, you don't know it that you need it until you go to somebody else's town and you don't know where the stuff is. So Beth.
Yeah, so our story is a little different. We have a very shoestring budget. And we in Baker have only done really that logo development, not the full extensive plan with wayfinding yet. So we did a couple things to save our costs. We reached out to a number of people who had roots in Baker who are professional graphic designers, because we really felt it was important that they actually knew who we were and got the identity of the community. And who we ultimately decided to go with was a county employee who the county allowed them to use staff time and staff resources, and that was kind of the county's donation. And so that it happened to be that we had a local graphic designer who had those skills that we needed in our community and whose employer allowed her to do the work. So that was very, very helpful. So county paid her basically for her time to do it. And then we used our funding from Reimagining Rural, and then also we matched it with a Montana Community Foundation grant. And that's how we bought like our banners and some promotional materials to kind of get it started. Another thing we did was with our local print shop where all these things get created and who has access to the logo, is we take a portion of that cost. She adds on an additional percentage, and we put that in an account that our chamber holds so that we can continue to generate revenue for replacing these things and continue the marketing. So it's a small amount, but it does help kind of do some ongoing income generation to further our process.
That's great, Beth. And you know what? I'm really glad to have you here because everybody's going to do it different, and you have to figure out how it fits for your community. So, and I love that you guys bootstrapped it and you figured it out, and that's awesome. Jennifer, you kind of have a similar story too, don't you? Like you kind of figured out how to, for Forsyth, how to do it on the cheap.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure if we,
don't mean to
I'm
say
not sure
that in a negative way, but yeah.
No. And I'm not sure we're going to end up doing it on the cheap, but one of the things that we did decide to do prior to, we knew that we were going to, stakeholder engagement was going to be a huge piece of this, and that we needed to gather input and gather information from all sources of folks. So prior to really getting started, one of the first steps that we did was on our own was created a community branding survey by researching what other cities had done and kind of repurposing, not reinventing the wheel, repurposing other surveys that we saw out there. So we designed and developed the survey ourselves. We did it through MSU Extension using Qualtrics. And I think we got, just on our own effort, I think we were around 300 survey responses, and it ranged from tourists to it wasn't just folks who lived here. So responses came from all kinds of places and people, but it was a honestly pretty simple way for us to gather some data prior to hiring a firm, because we knew that that was going to be probably included in the expense of that, and we were trying to be mindful of the funds. So we did do that on our own, and we have that data to present. Our budget wise, it is thanks to being part of Montana Main Street program, we have a $60,000 budget going, so we have $60,000 to work with. We knowing, like looking at what Thompson Falls had done and what Glasgow had done and some Boulder had done, we were kind of estimating $20,000 for the brand toolkit development. And what we were thinking with brand toolkit would be logo designs, fonts, or typesetting, colors, and a couple different taglines. So we're kind of hoping we can get that done for about 20, which is kind of, I think, what some of the other folks are saying. But that was a question that came up in the chat box that is relative to this is, with the costs mentioned, what was included in your branding? So I don't know if folks, if they could just quickly share, like, what they spent, what was included in that. So like Thompson Falls, I know you went with Windfall, correct? I mean, that's the agency you went with. And you said $11,000 for the design. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? Can you tell us a little bit more?
About the design process?
Yeah, and what did you get for the 11? What did you actually get for the 11,000?
Honestly, when it came right down to it, we got that logo that you saw when we first popped it up. You know, and we got some variations of it. You got your survey results. You got, you know, the community sentiment. But that ultimately the deliverable was that graphic. And now we've been able to use that graphic on, you know, the signages for coming in and out of town and such. But this is what our $11,000 got us, is right there. And of course some variations in, you know, for the chamber to use and for the city to use. But when it comes right down to it, that big old elk in the middle of it with us saying genuine in nature. Now I would honestly say that genuine in nature line is probably more of what we paid $11,000 for. And that was just so important for us to understand, is that, you know, who are we? You know, what is the characteristic of Thompson Falls that we want people to remember? And that's a big deal. But while I've got the microphone for just a second, the wayfinding, I cannot stress how important enough that is that once you get that logo, you need to move into wayfinding, because that's a whole other battle that we're in the middle of right now. We hope to have a plan in place 26 weeks from now, but just getting people like to be told where to go. I mean, that's just all there is to it. And we have so many secret little spots that we either want people to go to or not go to. And just really having control of that traffic is so key. And we really don't have anything in town at this moment, but that's our next big hurdle, is making sure that we get people to the places that they need to be.
Yeah, I'll just add, like, if you live there your whole life, you don't realize that, you know, where everything is just instinctively. But if you're not from there, you really don't know. Jennifer, I just want to take a second and share the share Shoto. So Shoto isn't included in this. We had them speak at Reimagining Rural the second year, I think. But this is their website. So this is their branding. So they have a website on their Visit Shoto webpage, and here's all the stuff. So here's where if you live in Shoto, but I can access this. I don't live in Shoto. So you can access, this is the brand and all the different ways that you might need to use it. They have it just posted on their website. It's out there for everybody. So they also received a grant, I think, from the Department of Commerce, and through that process. So I think this is kind of what Jennifer was talking about with the toolkit. So if everybody uses the same font, they use the same logo, they use the same, they even have a playlist. But it gives your whole community a cohesive look, and it's feels comfortable and welcoming to people that are coming in from your town, whether they grew up there or not. Because we forget that even our kids that grew up there, they move away and they go to the city or whatever, they might want to come back, but they are exposed. We're all exposed to such high level of graphics and that sort of thing right now. Okay.
I would be curious just to hear from Glasgow really quick, because I wrote down they spent $21,000 on their logo. So can you explain, tell us a little bit more about what you got for your $21,000?
Well, the actual, we have multiple graphics like everybody else, but we also, that's where they sat down with us. They came up here multiple times because Joanna is from this area, like I said. So, and we came up, we got those maps of Glasgow and Fort Peck. They incorporated, if you notice, I sent you the Glasgow map, but they also incorporated Fort Peck because we have Fort Peck right out our back door. That's a huge tourist attraction for our community. So we did them both at once. But basically, and I did send her our branding essence, what they did. It's and you welcome to share it. And it went step by step of what we did. All of our surveys are because they were at the some of the downtown public forums for questions and answers. We also got to promote in our community. We got big billboards like that you could show off to have a presentation. But basically, it's the logo. It's the time they spend to go through to get the community or your cohesiveness and show off your community, basically is what it is. And and there was multiple edits, but that was the actual price of that. And like I said, it was probably an 8-month ordeal just getting to that point.
It's pretty interesting. I helped Jennifer out a little bit with her Forsyth survey that they did, and they had about 300 respondents. It was done online, so people could do it from all over. We had a number of people that were not even living in Forsyth. They grew up there. But I was struck by even Jennifer, born and raised, I think 2nd or 3rd generation Forsyth resident. And we were all surprised at the emotion that came through of that survey of like the love that people have for Forsyth and the great memories of growing up there and life there and all the different kind of key places in that town. And so I know a lot of people think surveys are dumb or whatever, but you really actually it helps you see your town from another point of view. Jennifer, I don't know if you mean to have your screen off, but we can't see you. So I saw Nate raising a hand. Yeah. There you go.
So can I speak to kind of what you're talking about as the firm that I've been communicating with is Highline Design out of Kalispell. And when I was talking about when they were trying to figure out their scope of work for this project, something they said was like it's almost like a community pride thing. And I think that hasn't been said yet about community branding, but I think that is a component to for the locals that might be there or the people who have moved away and want to see their town succeed, because I feel like all of our small towns, former residents are still passionate about them and seeing them succeed. And so I think branding, if you ever need a selling point too, is almost like a community pride thing as well.
Great. Should we go to the next question? Well, this might be a quick one. So, and this has also been asked in maybe we already, we had the question, did you hire an agency or did you do it on your own? So you've kind of all said that you've already kind of shared that. Go ahead, Jennifer.
I just thought sorry, so I had to turn my camera off. I thought I swallowed some water and thought I was going to die there for a second. So for a hot minute, so I had to step out. But anyway, I'm just wondering if we at some point even could just put in the chat box the agencies that we used. And I'm not sure if I've had a couple questions on the chat box about sharing surveys. So I know we can share ours. I'm not sure if the other places can, but I'm thinking it's going to be super helpful if we could all share the surveys that we used, if any of the other communities are interested in going down this path.
Our survey that brand essence that I emailed you, Tara, it has the survey in the very back of it. It's part of that.
Great. Okay. Thank you. So I will share, might be a lot. Maybe we'll have to create a little web page where we can put all this stuff because it probably won't all fit in the email. Okay, awesome. So, okay, Tara, Glendive used Rebel River out of Billings. Sweet. And the surveys, we can share that. We can share, because that's how Jennifer developed theirs in Forsyth, is kind of looking at all the other surveys that have been done and kind of creating them. And that saved them some money, so they didn't have to pay somebody to do that. That's something that they did on their own, which is a great way to go. And did theirs in Glasgow. I think Went also did Shodos, but Windfall is one that was mentioned. and they're out of Missoula, I think. So Shyla Hadley in Baker.
We did that.
So she's got a business, it sounds like. So you could probably contact her and maybe she could do something for you if you wanted. Highline Designs in Kalispell. Awesome. So you're planning to use them, Nate. You're like working on getting that going, sounds like.
We, oh, I was gonna say, we in Forsyth are looking at, we haven't made a decision, but we have been talking to Windfall as well. Just because, and part of the reason is because I think they're very highly connected to the tourism, right, Beth? They do, this is not my strong point, but they do work closely with a lot of the tourism groups. And so we are just like, they have access to so much intrinsic knowledge about our area that it would be crazy not to have a conversation with them.
Can I speak on that a little bit? Yeah. So I'm involved with Glacier Country Tourism. I serve on their board, and Windfall is their agency as well. So they're incredibly connected when it comes to the communities and what they're looking for. So they do a really great job. However, we did put together an RFP on this and put it out there, and we made sure that we had our conditions and try to make it somewhat competitive, and we received multiple responses. So it's not like we just handed it over to Windfall. We wanted to make sure that they were going to do what we needed them to do.
We also did an RFP through the city, and we had 5 different firms contact us, different price ranges, but we also did an RFP.
So I also think, Tara, maybe that's something they could share.
Yes. Yeah, if you guys would be willing to share your RFPs with us, that would be really great.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Thank you, Nate. Nate is a counselor at the school, so he has to go back to school. So thank you so much for joining us in the middle of your day. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much for inviting me. And it was really nice to hear from the other communities. So thanks so much.
Great. Thank you. Okay.
I'll just add on the RFP. We did it as well in Glendive, and Rebel River ended up winning ours. Their presentation was probably the most outstanding one to us. We had Windfall as an option as well. I think that what we looked to is that we really wanted to grab the knowledge from the survey. We wanted to figure out who we are. And so we put a lot of weight into that. We had a local company put in a bid as well, and we did not choose them. So I kind of would like to share with the group of what that's like when you don't choose your local graphic artists or business firms, because it did end up being a backlash for us as the committee. So it's just something to really think about, how you can still work with your local people and have the professionalism and have people with just more access to artists and things like that. So working with corporations versus maybe your local companies, figuring out like what that balance is and what that looks like, and then just really understanding if there will be any backlash because of that.
Do you have any words of wisdom, Tara, for us on that? Because I mean, that's a huge deal. You got to get it's important to get community support. So I don't know, anything you learned?
Yeah, so we probably done the hindsight 2020 question, but it's really about we maybe should have done a better job of explaining to the entire community. I'm not sure how you do that beyond our focus groups, but what branding is, what it entails, the steps that it takes. I think that was maybe lacking in our overall. We did focus groups. We did surveys, so there was the opportunity for the community to participate in it, but helping them understand why we didn't choose a local firm and why we, quote, didn't spend our money in our dollars inside of our community. Why did we spend dollars outside of our community? And so helping them understand that part of it. And I probably would have brought on the local firm in a bigger way, either had them on the committee and somehow involved them more so that it didn't feel like they were left out of the process completely.
Great. Yeah, that's tough. It's hard. I mean, this is hard stuff to do. It's not going to be, whenever you're trying to get everybody to agree on something, everybody has a different perspective on their community. So this is not necessarily going to be a cakewalk for anybody. So yeah. Do you have any thoughts on that, Beth? It looks like I'm sure you were right there with Tara on this.
Yeah. So seeing that, or just from even Baker's experience, we had it, these things can go sideways fast. And it's just, I think being really strategic about who you have on the committee is very important. So we got into it fairly early. People were like, well, we wanted to show everything that we love about our community. So we need cows and we need wheat and we need oil and we need the lake and we just need small business. And it was just so cluttered. And so we had to, thankfully, we have a really great, our graphic designer was wonderful and she's very loved in the community. And so people took feedback from her well, which she was like, that's too much. It will feel cluttered and you won't communicate what you really want to communicate. But also having committee members who are okay with saying that's maybe not my most favorite design, but I'm on board with this process and I'm going to back it. And who support the end goal, even if the process gets a little different than they had expected, or the design wasn't ultimately their most favorite thing. That I think making sure that you have the right people on your committee is so key. Also in what their voice is outside of the committee into the community, are they respected members of the community who do have the ability to champion a project and people will follow them. And so that's just from our perspective, something that was really helpful is making sure that we had the right voices. And we did have some voices that I was like, oh, I don't know where this is going to go. And we had to collaborate together and just kind of establish ground rules for that process and just continue to communicate. So working on a committee is always hard.
I was just going to echo that. Yeah. I think that for Glendive, working on the committee was a positive and a negative because not everyone felt comfortable to tell a corporation, a marketing firm, no, that we didn't love it the most, or to say to them, you need to go back to the drawing board. I think that there was hesitation there. Whereas maybe if it was a local person, they may not have hesitated the same, or just sort of to Beth's point of oh, that's not going to work if you do it that way. We weren't able to really voice that concern. I don't think the committee felt as though there was one person who could stand up and say, actually, we need you to go back to the drawing board. We don't like this, or we feel like it should go this direction, or this is what we were envisioning. And the end, it was, this is what we've done. And so I think that in the end, they would have preferred to go back to the drawing board scenario.
That's really interesting. Yeah, that's hard to know how to work with them. Yeah, go ahead, Jen.
No, I was just going to say, Tara, I think I find that fascinating because I have in my 20 plus years of doing this kind of work, I've ran into that a couple of times where we hired an outside firm to do something for us, and our folks were erred on the side of caution and being too polite because they were kind of volunteers, and so they didn't want to offend the professional, and so they just were like, that's really nice. And now in hindsight, what I've learned from those experiences is when I see those cues, it's kind of like, whoa, these are red flags, time out. You got to tell us how you really feel before we go down this. But that's so very true. Is I think a lot of times when we've worked with volunteers for different kinds of projects and you're hiring some kind of outside firm, what I've seen is our folks just end up being nice, maybe too nice. And they forget that we have hired them to do a job. So interesting, but it's fascinating. It happens.
Yeah, I often said afterwards, if we were a corporation and the CEO was sitting in the room, the CEO would have said, you need to go back to the drawing board. We will not pay for this. And that's how it's going to be, versus a committee of people who were then marketed to, right? The marketing firm sold the design to them. And then, like you said, they'd already asked the marketing firm to go back to the drawing board once. And so the second time around, it was like, okay, this is better. And so it'll work out. And I feel like as an overall group, they would have probably taken a step back and said, let's sleep on this and think about it for a little bit and then get back to you as to whether or not this is our final decision.
Well, I just want to point out too, like Tara, what you're talking about. So we talked, everybody has talked about doing a survey or some focus groups or trying to understand, get input from the community about what is the essence of your town. So that's, you know, the idea behind that is to head off some of this. The more work you do with community engagement and like talking to people and research, that is input. Actually, this is my job first out of college for 7 years. I worked at a national advertising agency, and my job literally was to fly around the country and do focus groups to understand the relationship to the brand. So I know this very well, but that's what you do, is like the research to understand what it is they want the image to represent. And it may not be literal, like what Beth was talking about. I've seen that a lot of small towns, they have like they have a mountain, they have a four-wheeler, they have all these little things. Well, I mean, that is a literal representation of your town, but you can take it a step back, more like what they have with Thompson Falls is like or Glasgow's too. It's just like more of a feeling of your town, not a literal representation. But doing that homework, doing that research, that's what leads you to a smoother process of the adoption of the final product. So we have a question here. Jennifer, I want to hear what you have to say about this. How did you determine who you wanted on your committee? Did you invite everyone or seek out specific people? Because I know you have thoughts on that.
Sure. So how we started to begin with was it came from, so we had Reimagining Rural folks who participated, community folks who participated in Reimagining Rural. It was an idea from our Reimagining Rural, specifically because what we had saw from Shoto. From there, what we did was hosted community gathering conversation meetings, and we invited Shoto, because this might go back to another question on there of how do you bring groups together that are disconnected a little bit. What we did was hosted a couple of community conversations, and when I say we, that came from the Extension Office, we hosted some community conversations. There were over 100 letters, invitations sent out. And I think we probably had somewhere between 40, 50 people show up. From that, we asked for volunteers to whoever wanted to be involved in the project. So that was kind of the process that we used. I saw that Beth and Ray, I think both said they started with steering committees and then looked to see where they had gaps and things. So but that is the process we started. But I will say this, a fundamental community development practice is to asset map your community and know who is in your community, know what groups are functioning and successful in your community, and say this over and over again in small towns especially, but you got to know who the kingmakers are, or know who the influencers are, and know who, when they speak, people listen, and you want to get them involved some way, shape, or form, because those are the folks that are either going to make you or break you. And you want them to give you their good housekeeping seal of approval. So, but yeah, so that's kind of what we've done, but that's also what I do with a lot of different projects.
So we've talked a lot about nuts and bolts and very specifics, and I appreciate that. And we will assemble as much as we can. I think as much as we can pull together, I can tell it will be really helpful for all of you on, as well as people that will listen to the recording, because we do have a lot of people listening to these recordings and watching them, which is awesome. I'm curious if you all have some thoughts on how your community has benefited. So all this money, all this time, all this effort, all these meetings, how do you feel like your community has benefited, or how do you think it will benefit from having this brand, this cohesive look? Anybody have any thoughts on that?
Sure. You know, we focused on our gateway signage as our priority. You know, that first thing that someone's going to see as they come in, because you know we have learned you know that an average visitor, if they just stay a day, you know, and that's all we need is just one day. The economic benefit to our Main Street, you know, businesses is just, it's astounding. And I forget exactly what the number was. I've been trying to like search it out. I've got it somewhere here. But just to give folks, that's the first impression that you're going to get. And even if you don't want them to, you know, hang out for long periods of time or take up your boat launch, if they stick around for a day, have a lunch, you know, take a little walk around the town, the economic benefit is substantial. And we've seen that.
So economic benefit, anybody else? Anything that you hope to gain for those that haven't done it yet? I guess everybody here, maybe, yeah.
I can talk about what we've done in Baker. So we made our downtown banners, and we have now had like more movement in like revitalizing our downtown corridor specifically, and whether that's doing planters, just making it more of a welcoming downtown. Also, our chamber decided to just recently, they said, we love our new community brand, but we want to do our own new logo that is cohesive with that and kind of mirrors that, uses those same colors. So it's kind of done a spin-off into other groups too, who want to make sure that they are playing off of what we have. I know I've seen it, our museum has been really great about being a sponsor of that and using it on a lot of her promotional materials and things that she sells in the gift store. And anytime somebody asks for a door prize, that somehow the logo shows up as a part of the door prize, on whether it's a t-shirt or a water bottle. It's just showing up as like, hey, you need a generic thing from our community, here it is. So, and it's being sold in our hardware store, our liquor store has it on shot glasses. Just anywhere you can slap a logo, people have been exploring it. So
that is awesome. Okay, yeah. Lisa and then Tara.
We actually have bumper stickers we've used. So when tourists come in, a lot of times the Montana did their campaign visit MT, the green one. We turned our logo into bumper stickers. So we have those as people, when they come in the chamber, they take them places they've been. You know, we're, like I said, we're right on the verge of Fort Peck Lake. We get tourism, June through August is huge for us. So, and a lot of people didn't know how, it's kind of confusing for us, like Fort Peck Lake, how to get out on that road. It's not a main road. So, I mean, we get a lot of that, but we also wanted to show off our downtown. We've been doing a lot of revitalization downtown. We're working on a downtown lighting plan right now. So we wanted to show off our downtown, and a lot of people didn't know we had a downtown because they thought Highway 2 was it. So that was the main benefit. Now we're seeing more, and we have a lot of cool little spots downtown. So, but that has been a huge benefit. And that's, I think, what brought all of this about is when you go through Glasspool, you go through Highway 2, and that's, nobody wants to turn underneath the underpass or go across the tracks, because usually it's just housing. But like I said, it's really benefited with our downtown district.
That's awesome. Okay, Tara, do you have thoughts on that? How your community's benefited?
Yeah, so I think that how we'll benefit in the long run is the research that was gathered via those surveys and those focus groups. It really showed us what our community thinks that we should be known for. We have, like I said, an embarrassment of riches. We have so much stuff, and you have to go through our downtown to get to Makoshika State Park, and it's, you know, our largest state park, and we have over 150 visitors come through every year. So we're hoping that having the knowledge of what our community thinks that we should be known for, and then being able to do signage with that, wayfinding and things like that.
That's great. So maybe I'll look through the questions that we have. We had a question about suggestions for small towns where there's a disconnect between chamber revitalization and the city. cities strapped for time resources and they're trying to survive. We want to create. Yeah. Does anybody have any thoughts on that? That's a tough one.
Yeah, I mean,
I would just,
go ahead. Well, it's already been mentioned. I mean, find your champion. I mean, it's the thing about a rural community is that, you know, it just takes somebody, you know, and that somebody can gather some other folks around and you can develop that steering committee. But, you know, find a champion, and unless the community has the energy for it, or unless somebody has the energy for it, don't try. I mean, you're just going to just, you know, fizzle out. But if it's something that you're passionate about, you'll get it done. Or if you just think it's a really good idea, find someone that's got the passion for it. Finding those champions is just so critical in every one of these steps.
Totally agree. Anybody else?
For
say
our
with
city-
ours. Oh, no, go ahead.
Jennifer, then Beth. Let's do that.
Okay, so I think with ours, when we was started with the community conversations, I would say that I wouldn't say we were disconnected, but I would probably say we weren't all at the same time. We probably weren't greatly connected either. But inviting everybody to the table and just having an open conversation, you know, just an honest conversation and a respectful was super helpful for us, because I think at one of the, you know, kind of facilitating that conversation, one of the questions I always ask is, like, rubber meets the road. Are you prepared to do this? Are we prepared to all work together and do this? That's an honest question. And honestly, we did have some folks in the community that were like, nope, I'm out. Like, this is interesting, but I'm out. Thanks, but I'm out. So I think if you want to start to bring folks together, you gotta be able to have a little vulnerability and have honest conversations and be respectful of everybody's position on it.
That's a tough one. Beth, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, our city's in the same spot where, like, financially they can't give anything. They just don't have the money. And so, but we felt it was important for the city to be involved. So they appointed a council member to be on our committee. And that was helpful. And then also the city does volunteer stuff. Like, they are the ones who take down the banners and put them up. And like, they can't give money, but they're like, we can have our staff do this and allow it to be on city time to hang up banners and have their public works guys do that. So that's something where whoever it is, and maybe they don't have the money, but like, find what resource they do have. And so, and use that if they are willing. I think finding people who are actually willing. If they don't want to do it, then don't force. It's not worth it to lose that, like, relationship capital in a small community.
It's something I want to stress here too. We're hearing a lot about money. Something that I firmly believe is that money is rarely the issue. I mean, it really is the planning. It's the getting people in the room. It's that getting into alignment. And so if you really focus your energies on the alignment piece, and really just having those conversations, the money's out there. You can find it.
Yep.
You know, it's more about making that plan in order to acquire it. And how are we going to do it? You know, in a way that you start to, you know, see some early success and that you can build off that momentum. But the money comes. It's the planning part that's really that's the struggle.
And it's very time consuming, the planning.
Yeah, but time well spent, right? Because then you do the
Yes.
plan, you do that research and that conversations and all these meetings, and it's the process that saves you time in the end. We did have one question at the very early on that somebody asked if anybody incorporated the opinions or thoughts of first-time visitors. No, it's not looking like it. Go ahead,
No,
Tara.
no,
Go ahead.
no.
Tara, then Ray.
Okay, sorry, Ray. We didn't have a perspective of visitors or quote unquote tourists, but we did have newcomers in our surveys. So they gave valuable information, just people who are new to our community.
Ray, go ahead.
Sure. You know, we didn't ask tourists or newcomers, but we did ask our students. You know, we went to the high school, we went to the junior high, we went to the elementary, and just kind of got what their feelings and perspectives were on the community. And it was very insightful, incredibly insightful.
That's awesome. Great. Well, we're getting close to the end of time. I will just say, Ray, you said something about money. The money comes. That's not the problem. The challenge. We love this phrase and extension that investment follows vision. So if you have a clear vision, like if you have a person that can really articulate that vision, and I think Nate Kavanaugh from Cup Bank might be one that was able to articulate that. Maybe you all know that, but know that person in your town. But investment follows vision. So if you can really articulate the vision, the money can follow.
Just a quick question, Tara. I want to ask folks was your project led by a paid staff person or a volunteer?
All of ours, for us, it was a committee. It was formed of a committee that got paid to do it. Essentially, like I was during work hours, and people from Two Rivers Economic Growth. She works at the Cottonwood. They allowed her to do it on work hours. So it was mostly. I mean, there were some volunteers that didn't work. I mean, it wasn't on their time, but most of it was paid through their work hours.
Yeah, I'd say all
the grant writing was done that way too.
So Ray, and then Beth and Tara, if you have something.
Yeah, I would say the actual work wasn't necessarily, it was mostly volunteer. Of course we get paid for our efforts, or we get paid for the grant writing on behalf of Main Street, or those different ways of kind of financing our time. But the actual work and development of this was all volunteer.
We had a lot of people who are allowed to use their staff time for it, but it was also a mix. There were some people who came on their own like lunch hours that they were just there because they're volunteers. But like I was part of it, and obviously like my grant writing, my time, I get to be there because it's part of economic development. So ours was a mix.
Ours was a mix. Yep, ours was a mix as well. Yeah.
What do you think, Jennifer? I guess one thing, lessons learned, hindsight 2020. Do you have a nugget that you would share, like one little piece of advice that you would share with somebody that might be embarking on this? We have a lot of people interested in this. So do you have something that you would say, like one little nugget?
Maintain a feedback loop, and keep everybody in alignment. Make sure everybody knows where you're at with the process. Just keeping everybody on the same page is really important. You just want to know, you want to get an early win, identify that low-hanging fruit, and then roll with it, and don't stop.
I love it. An early win is huge, right? Because then it's like people are maybe on the fence, but if they see something good come out of it, they're like, okay, maybe this isn't such a bad idea. So maybe Lisa, Tara, Beth.
It was we had a lot of people say, you guys are spending a lot of time on this, but where's the brick and mortar? And that was the tough part for the people on the steering committee, is it took so long to actually get something in the ground and visible so that our community could see it. And once we got it, it got more people excited for the signs. We've gotten so many great compliments, and now we have the community backing for every time we get a grant for more signs. Because like I said, there's probably 40 more signs we'd like in our community, and we don't have a big community, but there's a lot of places in our community that you can't find. So it's, like I said, it's time saving, but it's once you get that first sign in the ground, the brick, it's very rewarding. You have to have patience though.
I think from our perspective, I kind of touched on it, where if you're not happy with the result, to not be afraid to go back to the drawing board.
I think for us, it was finding about what was valuable to our community and what would speak to them. And for part of that was like finding a local person to be the one who created that was something that spoke to them and allowed them to bring down a barrier to get to the next phase. So just identifying what is valuable to your community and making sure that you use that to your advantage.
Jennifer, do you have anything to add? You guys are at the early stages, but do you have any thoughts?
I have to agree with what everybody has said. I don't think we've gotten far enough down the road yet, but I will say the early wins. So this makes me chuckle because we did the survey. We've been meeting for over a year, it feels like, and we did the survey and of course got some responses on there that were kind of scathing and why are we doing this and, just negative stuff. But the minute we got the $50,000 from Montana Main Street program, people were really ready to tell me like what they thought we should be doing with the money, which I thought was very fascinating. So
I love that. Anyway, it's funny. And I bet doing that survey had a big part of you guys getting that big grant because you showed that you had some skin in the game, that you already were working on it. You're dedicated to making it a success.
We did, and we had, we had a hard match of 10,000 in hand, so that was super, super helpful.
Great. Okay. Well, I see we're just a few minutes from the end time, so I just want to thank our panelists so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to send me all your stuff and put your thoughts together for this. Truly appreciate it. This is going to be really helpful for a lot of people, and not just for today, but going down the road, because we post these recordings and they are viewed quite a bit, which is quite awesome. So this is part of our Inspiration Hour series. We're doing this Inspiration Hour series all throughout this 2023. Our next edition will be in March, and this is April, and the topic is starting a festival. We had Kendra from, she does the Harlow Music Festival in Harlowton, Montana, and she spoke at a Reimagining World the second year, and people just really were super interested in that. So we're going to have a whole session focused on getting a festival started, finding the idea, planning, all sorts of things. We'll have speakers that are experienced in that. So tune in for that. That's coming up in April, and we'll be sending out an email with as many resources as we can pull together. We'll send it in an email with the recording for this, so you can share it with your friends and your colleagues and your co-volunteers. We'll post it on our website. I'm not going to be able to do it today because I'm traveling today, but we'll get it out probably by Monday. We'll get the email out with all the resources and the recordings, and we will also post it on our website, the Inspiration Hour website. So, and I would also ask everybody if you could, I'll send out a link to an evaluation. If you could just let us know what resonated, what worked, what else you want to learn about, because that really helps us in planning that. We really look to those survey resources, so the feedback that you give us, and that's really where this all was started. What do people want? We're trying to serve it up for you all. So we appreciate it. Jennifer, any closing thoughts?
Nope, other than every time we do one of these, I'm just amazed because it's communities across Montana coming together, sharing their information, sharing their wealth of knowledge, and it helps all of us. So it's awesome.
Yep. Awesome. Good deal. Well, thank you, everybody. Hopefully we'll see you in April, and thanks again for joining us today.
Thanks, Sarah. We'll see you.